Welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring this culinary guide on red-braised eggplant, or hangshao-kizi, and our mission today is to basically figure out the techniques that turn this very humble vegetable into this ultimate butter-soft rice killer without, making it a greasy mess.
Right, yeah. Because if you have ever tried cooking eggplant at home, you already know the harsh truth. I mean, raw eggplant isn't really a vegetable, it's basically a kitchen sponge.
Oh, completely. You put it in a hot pan and it just aggressively sucks up like every single drop of oil.
Exactly, and then you're left with this heavy, soggy disaster. But this guide details how to completely bypass that problem.
Yeah, the guide claims that you can get this crispy, caramelized crust and a butter-soft interior without using a massive vat of oil for deep frying, which I actually have to push back on the chemistry here a little bit.
Oh, sure, lay it on me.
Well, if we establish that it is essentially a sponge, how is it chemically possible that it doesn't just soak up whatever oil is in the wok?
So the guide uses what it calls starch barrier technology. I know it sounds like a weird tech bro pitch, but it's actually a brilliant old-school kitchen trick. The first step is just breaking down that sponge structure.
Okay, so how do you do that?
A 10-minute salt treatment. The salt draws out the excess moisture and physically collapses those porous air pockets in the eggplant.
Oh, I see. So you squeeze out that water and you're left with these dehydrated pieces that are ready for the barrier.
Exactly. And then you coat those pieces in like 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch.
Just a tablespoon and a half.
Yeah, barely anything. When that incredibly thin layer of starch hits just 2 to 3 tablespoons of hot oil in a wok, which is a fraction of what deep frying requires, it instantly solidifies.
Wow. And that shell basically becomes this impenetrable barrier.
Right, and it locks the natural moisture inside, so the eggplant basically steams itself into this pillowy texture while completely blocking the oil from entering.
So it gives you that perfect restaurant-style crispness without the grease. That is amazing.
It really is.
Okay, so we've engineered this impenetrable, crispy shell. But red-braised eggplant is famously drenched in a really heavy glaze. Doesn't tossing it in a wet sauce completely destroy the crispy barrier we just spent all this time building?
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But that's where the chemistry of the cornstarch does double duty. The guide specifies a highly concentrated sauce.
Right, I was looking at that. It's light soy sauce for flavor, dark soy sauce for that deep mahogany color, oyster sauce, sugar, and just a half teaspoon of vinegar to cut the richness.
Exactly. And when that liquid mixture hits the heat and the starch coating, the starches instantly thicken the sauce.
Oh, so instead of soaking into the vegetable.
Yes. The sauce binds onto the exterior crust, creates this thick, sticky glaze that leaves the barrier perfectly intact underneath.
That makes so much sense. I want to pivot though, because the guide also makes a huge deal out of the aromatics, specifically something called the double garlic method.
Oh yeah, this is crucial.
But I mean, garlic is garlic. Why does it matter so much if you put it in now versus 5 minutes from now?
Well, timing changes the entire chemical profile of the aromatic. The recipe has you split the garlic into 2 distinct batches. The first half is sautéed in the oil right at the very beginning.
So cooking it down mellows out the harshness.
Yeah, it builds this deep, savory foundation for that glaze we just talked about.
I was thinking about this, and it's kind of like producing a music track. That early cooked garlic acts as the deep, rich bass line of the dish.
Oh, I really like that analogy.
Yeah, and then the guide has you toss the second batch of raw garlic in just 5 seconds before turning off the heat. So that raw garlic is your sharp, punchy treble solo that just cuts beautifully right through that heavy sauce.
That is exactly what it does. The residual heat cooks that final addition just enough to take the raw, stinging edge off, but it retains a fresh, sharp bite.
Wow.
It completely resets your palate with every single bite and cuts through the richness of the starch and oil, which is, exactly why they call this dish a rice killer. It just compels you to keep eating.
It sounds so good. So for everyone listening, this basically means you don't need a commercial deep fryer to master this at home.
Not at all.
By utilizing a simple starch barrier to fix the kitchen sponge problem and smartly timing your aromatics, you can easily replicate this masterful Chinese comfort food in your own kitchen.
It is totally doable. Understanding the mechanics of moisture and heat really gives you control over the final texture.
Which leaves you with something super interesting to ponder. If simply splitting a single ingredient, like garlic, into 2 different cooking stages, a cooked base and a raw finish can fundamentally elevate this eggplant dish, How might staggering the aromatics completely transform your own go-to weeknight recipes?
That is a fun experiment to try.
Definitely something to think about next time you fire up the stove.